Welcome, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more seconds for more people to join, and then we will begin. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar tonight. My name is Julia, and I am the Director of Marketing for Wild Women Expeditions. And tonight we are talking about Morocco. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions, we are more than happy to answer all questions that you may have. Please put them into the Q&A box. If the question that you are asking is something that we are currently talking about, I will interrupt our ladies and ask those questions. If not, we will answer them at the end of the webinar. And any questions that we don't get to, we will definitely email you as soon as we can or to contact you tomorrow with answers. So to begin, we will start with a little video.
When people think of Morocco, they think of the Sahara. It's the most iconic symbol, and of course is beautiful in its aridness and just forever undulating dunes.
This mountain of sand that goes on and on and on and on is one of those things you read in the books and you see pictures.
These images stand out in my mind where we're on the camels and it's sunset and the sun is throwing these long shadows across the dunes. And it's like a very iconic image. But to see that in person, oh, it was amazing.
So tonight, our panelists are Jenny Martindale, Director of Program and Operations, and Julie Ann Davies, who's Adventure Specialist. And I will hand it over to Jenny.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be participating in this webinar tonight about Morocco. I am currently Director of Program and Operations at Wild Women. I've been with the company for a while, and I was part of the very first Morocco adventure in 2019, and I have been twice since then, or just one more time since then. I've been twice with Wild Women, and so yeah, I'm super excited to be sharing some information about the trip and Morocco with you tonight.
Cool. And I'm Julie Ann Davies. Like Julia said, I'm the adventure specialist, and I was super lucky to go to Morocco this past February with Wild Women. And you can see I've got my camera there. I went to go on the adventure and to take photos and document this incredible trip. So yeah, and then I've been working as the adventure specialist. So I've probably talked on the phone to a few of you. If not, give me a call anytime. Love to chat. And yeah, really excited to talk about this incredible trip.
All right, we'll get started. So why Morocco?
So I'll start out here. Jenny and I are going to kind of bounce back and forth about the incredible aspects that this trip has to offer and this country has to offer. But some of the things that I just wanted to start out saying was, as you can see by the photos, this is a country that it's literally, if you're from North America or you live, Canada or the US, especially when you go to Morocco, it's pretty much like stepping back in time, and everybody is living. And I mean, pretty much everybody seems to be living such a beautiful traditional lifestyle. That is really shaped by what is, thousands of years of history, thousands of years of religious influence, Islamic influence. And quite often you'll see in these photos that that's our guide in the middle, Sarah. She's dressed sort of more modern, but so much of the population still dresses culturally. And one thing that I thought was absolutely fascinating was, you just don't have your big box stores, and you don't even have your franchises per se. Pretty much everything that we saw was either handmade or hand grown. And it's a really, really beautiful culture in that sense. Obviously the Islamic influence was amazing. And I know Jenny's going to talk about that. We've got some photos next of, you can go ahead, I guess, Jenny. We can
Sure.
move on. Yeah.
Yeah, so as Julianne mentioned, there's a amazing, rich historical, cultural history in Morocco, from the Amazigh people who are the indigenous people of North Africa, to the Muslim population. There is a very strong historical Jewish population in Morocco. There's even French influence, as well as Roman. So during our tour, we're going to sort of witness a lot of that history and culture and influence as well. So as you can see in the top right, Morocco, in Casablanca, we're going to visit the largest mosque in Africa, which is the Hassan II Mosque. And it's an incredible structure right on the coast of the ocean in Casablanca. And we'll start off with a tour of that right off the bat on day one. And also shown here are some Roman ruins, and those are the ruins of Volubilis, and they're fascinating as well. When I think of Morocco, I don't really think of Roman ruins. So to be able to visit this and walk through these ruins was a very, very interesting experience. And of course, we will visit the ancient and fascinating historical ancient walled cities such as Fez and Marrakesh, and also Meknes and Essaouira. And we'll spend some time wandering through the walled cities and in the Medinas and those narrow alleyways that are just so iconic, part of these cities. And these are just a labyrinth of alleyways and streets, and they're mostly pedestrian, which makes it wonderful places to walk. Although you might have to, walk around a mule once in a while and maybe negotiate with the odd motorcycle, especially in Marrakesh. But yeah, it's walking through the Medinas are such a wonderful experience. And again, here, the history and the tradition is reflected a lot in the architecture around you. You can see the traditional Moorish arches in the doorways, which is a Western Islamic style of architecture. At every turn, you see these stunning geometric patterns and mosaics full of beautiful mosaics and pottery. And we might see perched on the side of a mountain in the high Atlas, a village perched on the side of the mountain. And then in the more dry areas, the desert, you can still see in the bottom right here, there's a beautiful example of, actually it's a more modern building. It's fairly new building, but it is constructed in the traditional building materials using mud and clay and straw. And you can see the etches, the symbols etched in the side of the buildings are traditional Amazigh symbols as well. So you'll see this everywhere, and it's just beautiful. And here's another example of walking through how narrow those alleyways can get in Fez when you're walking through the Medina. And the picture here on the right is this woman sitting on the ground on the pile of sticks. She just finished picking some herbs and she'll be going to feed a cow later on in the day. So we get hands-on sometimes in these trips as well. And here we're touring and visiting Zawit Amelkis in the Ziz Valley, and it's a Ksar. This is the ruins of a Ksar, which is a fortified village. And you might hear the term Ksar and Kasbah. Kasbah is a more popular term that you hear more, and Kasbahs are their fortresses, and you'll see lots of examples of that in Morocco. And they would have housed tribal leaders. And then the Ksars are also fortified villages, but they're less grand, I guess you can say.
So I'll talk about this one. So this is, it's a really good example of what Jenny was just talking about. This is called Ait Ben Hadou. I think I'm pronouncing that properly. It's a UNESCO heritage site, and it's a Khazar, so it's a fortified village. And right now, I'm not too sure if people live there full time, but people are definitely living in there. Each little spot that you see is somebody's shop. There's quite a few artists living in there. And you may or may not get to just go and walk around this during the tour, but it's a fascinating example of a Khazar. And it's also, it really demonstrates how Morocco really puts a lot of care into preserving their heritage. So that was one thing that I really noticed. They've taken a lot of the Kasbahs and the Khazars and kind of maybe made them a little bit more modernized in a sense, and we actually stay in a few. So this one is really cool. It's built in the 11th century. It's sort of midway between the Sahara and Essaouira, and it's on the old camel caravan. So it was a trading stop along that route. Yeah, it's just fascinating, made of all straw, mud, and clay. It's incredible. And I think it's pretty cool how you can see there's a solar panel on one of them off to the right there. So kind of a real neat mix of kind of preserving the incredible culture that they have, but also, you know, keeping up with modern times. Yeah, anyway, that's a really good example of one.
And we thought it would be a good idea just to show you from space, I guess, just how much ground we actually do cover when we visit Morocco with Wild Women. You can see that the numbers here sort of represent the chronological order of the Mosaic of Morocco Tour. And we would land in Casablanca, that's where the international airport is, and then head east and up and through Meknes and into Fez, which is in the northeast there, and then down through Iflan and across the Middle Atlas Mountains, and then of course we'll sink our sand into the Sahara, or sink our feet into the Sahara sands, and then we'll head west through Skoura and then up into the High Atlas Mountains in Imlil. And then we'll dip our feet in the ocean again in Essaouira, and then we'll conclude the trip in Marrakesh. So this is the general layout of our current tour. And so, yeah, so Morocco is known as a land of contrasts. You're going to see so many different landscapes. In the top left here, we're overlooking Fez, and you see the rolling hills. It's very rich agricultural lands in this area. And then we'll head down through the cedar forests of Iflan. On every Wild Woman trip, you gotta hug a tree, right? and yeah, those giant cedars, oh, they're just magnificent. And then we'll head a little bit further south, and this image of the palm trees and the cliffs in behind, I just love so much. This is actually a view from your hotel. It's just so amazing. And we'll walk through the Palmeraie of the Ziz Valley, and then of course we'll experience the Sahara. We'll ride our camels into the sunset, and spend some time in the sands there before we reach our tented camp. And yeah, it doesn't end there. We'll be cycling in the Palmeraie near Skoura, and we'll be heading up into the Toubkal National Park and up into higher elevation. So I just looked it up, and Imlil is the village where we stay at, and it's at about 1,800 meters above sea level. So we'll be into the High Atlas Mountains as well. And then Essaouira is the beautiful blue boats that you see there. That's the coastal town. It's a super chill town. We'll go horseback riding on the beach, and we'll have it's a really nice, we'll see some museums, have a guided tour of the Medina, but it's just a kind of a nice city to chill out and maybe do some shopping and go to a cafe. And yeah, it's a really nice little city. Hand it over to you.
Yeah. Okay. So these are some images of some of the incredible handiwork that you'll see artisans doing all over Morocco. Just a quick rundown. So the top left picture, it's amazing how many natural products they seem to be able to have a use for. So the yellow is saffron. The blue they're using indigo to paint with, and then they mix green tea and brown sugar. And the artist who's sitting there with the fire, with the propane tank, he actually paints the painting, and then he'll paint the portion with the green tea and the brown sugar, but it doesn't show up until he holds it over top of the flame. And then all of a sudden you'll see the artwork come out. It's incredible. So yeah, we had a chance to visit him and do a little bit of shopping. There's tuya wood in the middle. It's a type of wood that's only grown in Morocco, right actually in the Essaouira area. So these incredible carvings. And then the woman on the right, she's a weaver. We visit quite a few different co-ops, weaving co-ops, and we get to actually see the women in action weaving the rugs, which was a very special thing. Down in the left-hand corner, some of the thousands and thousands of options for fabrics to buy. It was a little bit mind-blowing if you're into fabrics. And then on the right-hand side, this is a Berber fellow, and he is, I believe this is on the edge of, it's either Fez or Meknès, I can't remember, but on the edge of the Medina. And he's a Berber, and he's doing something called Damascene steel pounding by hand. So he's pounding out the steel, these plates, and then he's laying little bits of silver in to create these incredible designs. So needless to say, there's incredible amount of absolutely beautiful handmade things to purchase and just to even look at. You don't have to purchase, but it's pretty mind-blowing what they can do all from scratch. And then I think there's another slide, Jenny, right after this.
There, right? And I just I even have, I have
oh, yeah.
my weaving in behind. I have my scarf on tonight. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not a shopper, and I could not help myself. I got so sucked in. I'll tell you about that later. But on the left-hand side in the bottom, that's just an example. All of those little intricate designs is literally made by him laying little tiny pieces of steel or silver and pounding it. It's incredible. And then we've got on the left at the top, there's another co-op that we went to. This is a woman, and there were quite a few women all sitting there together, actually squeezing the kernels of the argan nuts and making argan oil. Incredible. And they're still doing it by hand in a lot of places. I'm sure they're moving to more modern machinery, maybe slowly, but it's just incredible to see these women doing that. A ton of pottery, as you can see. And then on the right at the top, this is a woman and her mother, and they create these beautiful little needlepoint. This is something they do in Morocco, and they pass these down from generation to generation. So that was a really neat thing to see as well. And then at the bottom, we're having one of our thousands of cups of mint tea in the co-op, in different co-ops that we went to. It all starts with this lovely sort of little tea ceremony. And yeah, it's just a really neat experience.
And these cups. Everybody comes home with these pretty little cups.
Anyhow, yeah, you can move to the next one. Okay, and so from on the map there was a section from when we left Imlil, where we hugged the tree, and then we headed down towards the Ziz Valley, and we crossed a pretty high plateau there, and it was a really, really barren area. You can see just little shrubs in the background. That's pretty much all they have for vegetation. And we were told that we may have a chance of meeting some nomads, which doesn't always happen, but we were lucky that day that they were there, and our guides have kind of established a little relationship with them. So this woman on the left, and actually the women on the bottom as well, this is all the same spot. She's called an Amazigh nomad, or otherwise known as Berber, or the free people. And I guess they call themselves the free people because they literally just want to be free, and they want to live their own way, and they want to live off the land, and they don't want to have to be tied to sort of anybody's rules. So anyway, they predate Islam, which I think is fascinating. And they also, it's a North African influence. And there's quite a few Amazigh people all over North Africa, but this is one tribe that we were lucky to meet this day. And this woman on the left here, she's got the traditional facial tattoos, which is still done today, slowly, less and less happening because of modernization, globalization. But it's incredible. It's kind of a rite of passage when they're young girls. They get these facial tattoos. And so we were invited in to, you can see down here is their home. They just kind of patch together whatever fabrics they have. They make these beautiful little homes. I love the solar panel as well. So a little mix of modern and traditional, but Mona is the woman in the blue. She invited us in for tea with her daughter, Fatima. And it was just a very neat experience to be able to go in and actually sit there and have tea. And Sarah was able to kind of translate for us. So we were able to kind of have a conversation with the family. And yeah, and then we gave them, what did we give them? We gave them cooking oil and sugar in exchange. Yeah, and it was just a very, I loved it. That was one of my favorite parts, but yeah.
Oh, and yeah, Julianne and I we're just so overwhelmed with, not overwhelmed, we just love the color. The color that you see in Morocco is extraordinary, and it's everywhere, and it's just a feast for the eyes. So these are just a few examples of some of the color that you see in the fabrics and the shoes and the jewelry and the pottery. It's just, yeah, it's beautiful. And again, here, again, another example, we have those triangles are actually cones of spice that you can see in the markets. There's an area up north, we'll talk about a little bit more, and it's the city of Chefchaouen, the Blue City. We don't go there on the main tour, but we do offer an extension there, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. The doors, there's so many, just everyone has these very yeah, the ornate doors with just little designs on it. Everyone is unique, and I took so many pictures of doors. I just loved seeing them all. And this extraordinary tent, the ceilinged tent with the color and the fabrics. This is in the Sahara, and this is your dining room in the Sahara. It's just so colorful and beautiful. So why Wild Women Expeditions? We just like to go through a little bit about the reasons why we think you'll love traveling with Wild Women. And I think we're going to start with a video. Yeah.
Very often we are put into a category. We are mothers, grandmothers, wives, whatever it is. And women need to give themselves permission to be all that they can be. Step away from who others think they should be. I'm 75 years old. I want to experience. I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to be who I am. And that is not someone who is growing old at home. I want to be young and vibrant and healthy.
Yeah, so just to expand a little bit on that, Wild Women Expeditions has been offering adventure travel for women, led by women, for women, for over 30 years now. And we really strive to create a safe space for women, a place where women can thrive and shine and be themselves, make connections with each other and with the nature around them. And especially in this case with Morocco, really immerse themselves into the culture as well. You'll probably find yourself surrounded with like-minded women, making very fast friends. And I know you're gonna have lots of fun. So fun is key as well, so yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's something that Wild Women does incredibly well, making these connections not only with the women who travel together, but establishing connections, really meaningful connections with the women in the countries that we go into. And this is just, there's some photos here just showing, I'd say maybe even more so on this Morocco trip, you have even more of a chance to kind of interact not one-on-one, but like in a really personal setting with different women, and you go into their homes, you have meals with them. We had a night of dancing and learning how to cook some traditional Moroccan food. We have a night where we go and we have another meal with them, and they put henna all over our hands. And it's just a very, I think, an incredible aspect that Wild Women really helps facilitate. And I feel like this Morocco trip it was kind of central to the theme was, and I think that might have to do with it being an Islamic culture. And you don't often think of women having the opportunities to kind of maybe connect with Western women or with the outside world. So it was a really neat, I think, a special thing that is added into this Moroccan trip. I think there's another slide where we're having, yeah, so we have on this bottom one on the left, we're in Fez. We go to the home of this woman and her mother. They cook us a meal, beautiful meal. Then they also teach us how to cook. And then we had dancing, and we tried on some traditional clothing. But it's just, to me, it's really cool to actually be able to go into their homes, to see how they live. And they're just so honored to have you there that it feels like a very mutually beneficial thing. Another picture in the tent, the nomad's tent. On the right-hand side is where we're learning how to cook. So yeah, I think it's a very important thing. And I think later we talk about sort of the impact that it has for the women who guide with us. But I think it has a very positive, it's a very positive thing for the women that we also connect with there. It's also, you know, a way for them to make a living. And it's also really, really important, I think, especially because the culture is so different from our own. I think this is one of the reasons we do travel. And I think it's very important to be able to have these experiences rather than just passing through on your tour bus and maybe seeing things from the outside. You really get to kind of go deeper and have a lot more sort of those real authentic experiences with the culture, with the people, but with women in particular on this trip.
Yeah, it was definitely, that's my favorite part of this tour.
Yeah, I think it was mine too.
Mm-hmm. So here's another little video.
I felt very privileged and honored to be invited into the homes of the women. And that's where we saw the strength.
What struck me is that no matter how different we are, we're still the same.
I believe that education and the knowledge of each other is going to bring great change in the world.
So yeah, so that being said, I mean, that's a really neat aspect of the trip, that you're getting to meet the women of Morocco. And then I think it's also really an incredibly empowering thing to have female guides, Moroccan guides, lead you. And I think Jenny was mentioning that when we started this 4 or 5 years ago, I think we only had maybe one female guide that we could actually have work with us. And now there's a whole number of female guides. I don't exactly know how many, but it's even over the last few years, the amount of women in these leadership roles there is starting to really go up and up. And one thing that I thought was really neat too is that we had a real mixture of female guides. So we have Chama in the orange headscarf down here. She is a Berber woman who is from a tiny little village way up in the Atlas Mountains. And that she is the very first Berber woman from her area to work as a tour guide, as a guide. So that was something she was extremely proud of. And then Sarah, the one in the blue, and there's a few other shots of her. She's a Muslim. She is from, I believe it's near Casablanca, but she is a very well-educated woman. She actually has a law degree. And she's decided that that's all fine and dandy, but she really was just so passionate about getting into the tourism industry. So incredible leaders. And then we also have, there's Hakida, I believe is her name, in the middle.
Yeah, she was my guide.
Yeah,
she was our
you can fill us in on her.
Yeah, Hafida is in the top right. And she was our very first guide. And her claim to fame is she's actually the very first Moroccan woman mountain guide. So she's led in the mountains. So, and she's very proud of that. She had a BBC bit about her. So yeah. So we loved having her as a guide as well. So we have, all sorts, I think, from one guide, and then Sarah came on board, and then Chama, and now we have, I'm seeing women's names who are guiding our trips, who I'm, we're just getting to know, right? So it's amazing. I hope that we may have played a little bit of part of that in creating a demand for more female tour leaders in Morocco, and yeah, so it's great.
Mhm.
And go to the next.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so on our tours, we also definitely want to contribute to local organizations. And so we visit several co-ops along our way, and we try to seek out female-owned businesses and accommodation owners and managers. And a couple of the things, so when we're up in Imlil at the Kasbah Tube Call, a portion of their revenue goes to an organization called Education for All. And young girls living in Morocco in rural areas have a hard time with continuing education. So they often don't have the opportunity to go to school beyond primary school. So Education for All facilitates these young girls with continuing education into high school and beyond, so they can head to college. And we also, on our very last day in Marrakesh, we go to the Amal Women's Training Center, and this is where we have this amazing cooking class. It's a wonderful organization. It helps disadvantaged women gain skills in the culinary arts, so they're employable, and hopefully get employed following their training. And so we spend a whole morning there cooking tagine and couscous and learning all about the spices. They have their own chickens there, and they grow their own herbs and vegetables. And so a lot of these ingredients are used during the cooking class. So that's a really nice way to end our trip in Marrakesh at the Amal Center. Oh yeah, Julianne gets to talk about, we do it in style.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons that this trip is amazing. The accommodation is definitely one of them. We stay in a whole different array of accommodations. As you can see, we've got the one on the bottom is one of my favorites. It's the hard shell tents that we stay in. So you actually ride your camel across the desert kind of later in the evening as the sun is setting, and you end up at this beautiful camp that actually has little flushing toilets and a hot shower right in the middle of the desert. Very environmentally sensitively designed. On the top left, we have, that is on the rooftop in Marrakesh. So we stay in these beautiful things called riads, as on the right, I think is the same. Actually, it's another riad that we're in, but our rooms are I'm looking from the room down into the beautiful courtyard and garden. And the riads are absolutely amazing. The one on the right is in Fez, and at the end of the day, we're walking through these narrow alleyways where you're actually starting to wonder if your guide is lost, because it just seems like you're heading sort of nowhere, these little 3 feet alleyways. And suddenly they'll open a door and you go in, and then you walk into this. It's just like walking into this other world. And this was designed for security purposes during, back when they were under attack. You could sort of hide your family in these riads, and these used to be owned by families and have slowly been purchased and turned into accommodations. So it was so amazing. We actually had one that had a hidden door. So you walked in and it just looked like this little tiny room, and there was a big bookcase. And when we were ready to go in, they opened the whole bookcase and wall opened up, and we opened up into this fascinating garden, 3 stories with, as you can see, pools on the top. And on the bottom left, that is the Khazar Al Kabab, Jenny? Is that the one so this is a Khazar that has been sort of revamped to become a hotel. It's owned by a family, but yeah, it's very luxurious. We had a lovely day hanging out by the pool, and one of the beauties of this spot and some of our other hotel or our accommodations is they have hammams, which is something that if you haven't heard of, it'll change your life. And look it up. But it's I don't know if it's actually Moroccan to begin with, but it's a very big thing in Morocco. It's full body massage, absolutely amazing. So you can lie around the pool and then go and have a hammam come back, have a cocktail and have dinner. On the far right-hand side at the bottom, that is the Casbah tube call that Jenny was just mentioning. And this is one, it's quite a fun experience, actually. We arrive, this is in the High Atlas Mountains, and we load our gear onto donkeys and they carry our gear up. And then we take a very gentle, fairly short, maybe half an hour walk up through the forest, up to this beautiful Casbah on the mountain with the Atlas in the background. And then I believe that's the top is just another one of our rooms in one of the Casbahs, but just absolutely beautiful, fairly mind-blowing accommodation. Yeah.
And where you sleep well, you'll also eat well, right? So yes, in Morocco, it's a feast for the eyes, but it's also a feast. So you'll try so many different foods. From Morocco grows a lot of its own food. It's a lot of organic, there's a lot of farm to table, definitely. And the salads are amazing. The tagine, if you haven't heard of the term tagine, you will definitely know by the end of your trip what a tagine is. You'll have several different, you'll be able to sample several different types of tagines. I think every family has their own recipe probably, and with all different flavors. And tagines are just amazing. They're the ones that are in the conical, the dishes that are cooked in the conical clay pots. In the top right, those are called chicken pastillas, and we'll help make those in Fez in a family's home. They'll teach us how to make those. In Essaouira on the ocean, we'll sample the fish, the seafood, and have a feast of seafood at the fish market. And those who would like, you'll have the opportunity to even try camel burger if you would like. And most people do try it. So anyway, yes, the food in Morocco, it's not, you think it might be spicy, but it isn't. It's not, it's flavorful, but it's not like hot spicy. So it's just, yeah, the flavors are amazing and plentiful, and yeah, you'll love it, I'm sure. You won't go hungry.
No.
Okay, so I think, yeah, that was a little bit about the main tour. If you know about the Blue City and Chefchaouen, I just wanted to speak a little bit to what we might be able to recommend if you arrive early or stay a little bit longer in Morocco. Right now, we're offering a 3-day extension to Chefchaouen, which is the Blue City that is approximately 5.5-hour drive north of Casablanca. So the extension would be offered in and out of Casablanca right before your trip starts. And yeah, and it just includes a guided tour of the city. There is a lot of self-exploration when you're up there, but it's an easy city to get around in, and every corner is a different shade of blue. It's just stunning and beautiful. So if you're interested in that, that's something that we do offer. And this would be a pre-trip recommendation or extension. And post-trip, this is the famous Jma El Fna Market Square in Marrakesh. It's something that everybody wants to and needs to experience when they're there. And at this time, our tour is only 1 night in Marrakesh. So if you would like to extend your stay in Marrakesh, we do recommend that. There are lots of galleries and gardens, and there's so much to explore in Marrakesh. So again, and we can help you with those recommendations and extending your stay as well in Marrakesh. And then we're going to get into some key items to bring along.
Yeah, I'll just talk a little bit about what to pack. Very first thing on there, light scarf. I think Jenny and I both have our Moroccan scarves. This never left my neck, and I often had it over my head to protect me from the sun, because the sun, as Jenny can account, it's very strong, and sounds like Jenny might have burnt her lips there on her trip. So a light scarf goes a really long way. If you don't have one, you can certainly find one in Morocco, which would be a lovely keepsake. A lightly insulated synthetic jacket. I was actually caught a little bit off guard because I went at the end of February and I thought I was leaving a Canadian winter and I was all excited and I packed stuff as if I was going to the tropics, but I actually needed, I luckily did throw in a little lightweight insulated jacket, and it went a long way as well, because it does get cool, especially in the desert. It gets cool in the night and also in the high Atlas when you're up at the higher elevations. Good walking shoes, hiking shoes. Women often ask that question. You certainly don't need to go out and buy hiking boots. And I don't even think you would want to wear hiking boots on this trip. I think you would just want to wear a decent pair of runners with a good grip. For the most part, you're not going anywhere too sort of rough or uneven, but having a good grip, and then lovely to have something like a pair of Birkenstocks that also have nice grips, but you can have your feet out, because it can warm up for sure. But you know, when you're traveling day after day, I find it's quite nice to have a sandal to let my feet breathe, especially when you're in the van. Lightweight cotton. I can't actually see it. I can't see the list because something's blocking it, but lightweight cotton, synthetic clothing. Yeah. So you don't need I wouldn't say you're going to need very many insulated, warmer wool type clothing. I would say you can be fine with cottons, things that are loose fitting, definitely. Jeans for sure, if you like your jeans, but I would say things that just in keeping with to be sort of culturally proper, you want to make sure that your clothing is sort of knee level or below. No tank tops, nothing too sort of showy, but having t-shirts that come sort of down to your elbows or all the way down to your wrists. And especially when you go into the mosques, you're going to want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately. Always think layering. Yeah, definitely. I mean, bring a warm layer, but bring some t-shirts too. So that you can kind of mix it up. A good sun hat, sunglasses, sunscreen, I would say is essential for sure. We're outside, even though we're traveling, we see so much of the country. It's not huge distances between. So you're not spending a lot of the day in the van driving. You're spending a good chunk of time outside. So really making sure that you don't want to get a little bit of heat stroke or anything like that and ruin your trip. So a good sun hat, sunglasses, a small backpack, or even just a nice little kind of a side purse type thing, maybe something that zips up, not to worry about theft or anything like that, but it is nice to probably have something that stays close to your body, just to carry your money, your passport, some water, your camera, and that nice insulated layer. And then at the bottom, it's saying extra empty duffel or a tote bag to bring home souvenirs. Well, there's definitely shipping options for the larger things that you purchase. Most of the women shipped home their rugs and their pottery. But I actually didn't have a duffel. One of my favorite things I own now is a beautiful handmade Berber duffel that I bought in Morocco, leather and hand stitched. And it really wasn't that expensive. And so I actually purchased a big duffel to put all of my beautiful pottery. And I don't even know how I carried it home, but there's lots of options for that. So we'll also give you a packing list. So this is just a kind of a few suggested items, but one of the things that you will get and is going to be posted on the website under the frequently asked questions is a packing list. So you'll definitely know what you need. It's there now. Yeah. So yeah, we will help you with that.
All right. I think that's concludes our slide presentation. But yeah, we'd love to open up the floor to questions. I think Julia was going to field the questions. Is she there? No.
We lost her.
We lost her. I'm not sure if could you check the chat? Or no, the chat in the, I think I'm not sure. I'm screen sharing, so I'm not gonna.
Okay, I see some. Okay, we've got questions here.
Okay.
All right, I'm just going to read out. So we've got very good question. Is it safe traveling as a solo female by train in Morocco? Actually, that question doesn't necessarily apply. This is why we need Julia to go through them, but we're together in a group and we're always going to be together. So yeah, definitely women have asked that question. Will I feel safe in Morocco? I can tell you that there wasn't even a single second that I had any sensation of not being safe, especially being in a group of women. You're always together. We're never really out at night unless we're together off to eat. And our guides are incredible at sort of keeping us feeling comfortable at all times. So was
the question about the train though? About taking the train on?
The train on their own, yeah.
I did end up taking the train from Marrakesh to Casablanca to get my flight home, and yeah, and it was fine. I was lucky enough. I was traveling with my mom when I was there. There were the two of us plus one other woman, but we ended up doing this independently, and it was fine. Yeah, just to get the train back to Casablanca.
Okay. Maybe do you want to answer this one, Jenny? It's what is your typical wild woman traveler demographic?
The typical demographic, oh goodness. It's always evolving, and oh gosh, that's sort of a question for our sales and marketing. But right now, I think we were looking at, and it probably depends on the trip. It probably depends on what you're doing, what the trip is offering, probably the difficulty level, et cetera, et cetera. But these days, our demographic, I think our average age is 65 and our median is about 58. So our groups are 50 plus mostly. But that's not to say we don't have 20-year-olds or even 16-year-olds. Sometimes the mom will bring her daughter. Yeah, it's not to say that we don't have women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. Yeah, but for the most part, I'm going to say 50 to 75.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, we have one here saying, hello, the trip sounds fantastic. My only potential issue is the amount of time spent traveling from location to location. Can you speak to how that's made more bearable?
Frequent stops.
Exactly, yeah. Interesting stops frequently.
Yeah, it does seem like that we are driving a lot is a lot to cover, and there may be there might be a couple times where we're driving a few hours at a time. But again, I don't think we'll ever go 3 hours even without a stop. There's always little places to check out along the way, photo ops, places to stretch, have lunch, have a snack. Yeah. So, and we'll probably stop and actually as part of the programming too, that's built in to the itinerary. So yeah, it is a lot of driving. We are covering a lot, but yes, we do our best to make those frequent stops to make sure there's not too much time in the van at once.
Yeah, and there's only sort of one or two real bigger pushes. The rest of the time it's broken into shorter chunks of time and you almost don't even notice. And the countryside is so beautiful that what you're seeing from inside the van too is quite fascinating. So you're not really ever feeling like you're just sitting there and not sort of somehow interacting with the country because
it's a 15-day trip too, right? It's it's a fairly long tour. So we do spread it out over almost 2 weeks. So yeah.
Here's a good question. And this is a very common question, but I think it's a very good one. What kind of mobility level do you need to do this trip?
Yeah, this one is fairly accessible. It's not a very difficult trip. If you really want to take full advantage of everything it offers, it's, essentially, yeah, if you can walk for steady several hours a day. When we're walking through the Medinas, we cover a lot of ground. We're in there for hours, right? Our hikes, if we're going out, when we're walking through the cedar forest or in Imlil, those hikes, that hikes maybe 1 to 2 hours through the forest, and it's not difficult walking. And the hiking in Imlil in the Atlas Mountains is it is optional. I think that we provide options on what you want to do on the different levels of walking and hiking. Horseback riding is optional. The cycling is optional. So again, yeah, it's a fairly accessible trip.
definitely. Sorry. Just back to that, somebody is saying, where exactly is the packing list on the website? Yeah, we have posted it on there now. So if you're looking at the web page, there's the main photo at the top, and then right underneath that, there's a few different things that will say itinerary and full experience, and then there'll be one that says FAQ. If you click on that, there's a drop-down menu, and you'll see right up there, I think it's one of the very first things, is a packing list. So you just click on that, and it's super detailed. What's the average group size? This trip?
Yeah, this trip is up to 12. So our maximum group size is 12, and we're selling out these. Yeah, a lot of these trips sell out. But and I think the minimum we'll run this trip is 5 to 6 people if we have a lower numbers. Yeah, so you shouldn't have groups less than 5 or 6 people, up to 12.
I actually think that our Morocco trips for next year already have that many plus. Yeah. So we're already at half full to filling. Yeah, we're getting there.
We're offering 6 trips, I think.
Yeah. So right. So is electricity available at night? Yep. Yes. There was only maybe 1 or 2 places where it seemed to kick on and off in the evenings. But otherwise you're, in terms of being able to charge up your cameras or your phones, that was never an issue. Crazily enough, even in the middle of the Sahara in our tents, we were able to plug our batteries in.
And you do need the small 2-prong adapter for. Yeah. Is it the European, one of the European adapters? Yeah.
Sorry. Question here. What are the big differences between the spring and fall trips?
I travel both times in March.
And I was there in February. From what I do know that the temperature is fairly similar in the spring and the fall, between the spring and the fall trips. I do believe that Morocco is not a rainy country, but I do believe that you might get a slight bit more rain in the earlier trips in the February, March. Might be a little bit drier in the September, October.
I think you usually would stop traveling to Morocco if you're not adapted to the heat, probably by April, May. I think May to September. September is still quite warm. We do offer trips in September, but it's starting to get cooler in September, but I think we're still pretty warm in September. And then October is back, probably equivalent to March.
And maybe one of the differences was that in the February, March was the beginning of their planting season. So when we walked around the Ziz Valley, there were quite a few people out in the fields planting. And then if you're there in the fall, you'll be there for the harvest. So that would be a really neat thing to see. Yeah, otherwise I think it's pretty similar at each end, at each time of year.
In the 20s Celsius.
Exactly, yeah.
And maybe it'll in the Sahara, if you're there in the heat of the day, it'll climb up there over 30 probably, but at night it then plummets. It gets cooler. So yeah.
A question just about the should we carry local currency, and if so, where do we get it?
Yeah, so you can only use local currency in Morocco, and you can only get it in Morocco, and you're advised not to take it out of Morocco. So what I've done, I think both times, I just got it as soon as I landed at the airport in Casablanca. There's an exchange booth right there in the airport. You can easily use your credit card to get cash. And I think that's recommended, is to use your credit card. Best rates. Yeah, but you can also bring USD, cash USD, and exchange that. I'm Canadian. I did not bring Canadian to exchange. I think I actually brought USD if I had cash. Yeah.
And it's important. So in Casablanca and Marrakesh, you can use your credit cards for purchases if you're, a shopper, or if you want to buy things. A lot of the places you can use your credit card, but when you're on the smaller villages and just sort of traveling through the lesser built up areas, that's when you're going to want to have cash to if you want to purchase anything along the way. Especially
And there are ATMs along the way, and the currency is the Moroccan dirham, is what it's
right. Question here: how well does Wild Women's Travel Group help plan an individual flight to and from Morocco? So we have 2 travel agents that we work with that they're wonderful, and they can help you with that. And we have their contact information. And do we want to give that out now, or that's something that they can contact us?
Yeah, you'll get all that information once you book. And yeah, we recommend Zale and Megan and at Travel Edge, and they are very familiar with our itineraries. So yeah, which is why we have that partnership with them. Yeah.
So I think we have a little bit more time, maybe one or two questions.
A couple more. I know I see like 30 questions. So
we'll get to answering them via email tomorrow.
So Julia she was having technical difficulties. Julia was going to field our questions, but she wasn't able to come back on. So anybody who has asked a question and we couldn't get to it, we will get to you directly for sure. But yeah, go for it. We can do a couple more. We'll go till 9.
Actually, and this is one that I think a lot of women might resonate with. Silly but necessary question. There's no silly questions. And that wasn't me. This is the woman typing it who said, silly but necessary question. As somebody who dehydrates and overheats, I drink a lot of water. How accessible are the toilets? Very. I don't really recall there being any time other than perhaps when you sort of from the start of your camel trip until you get to the Sahara or to your tent camp. There wasn't any time really that I can recall that we didn't have availability to washrooms. I can't even recall what happened during the camel trip in that sense, but do you, Jenny? I don't think it's
yeah, it was probably about a 2-hour time period during the camel walk. Yeah.
And stretch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just have to ask and we'll find you a bathroom for sure.
Yeah, even in those old fascinating twisted Medinas, it was possible to find a toilet anywhere and any time that we needed one.
Sometimes though they are not free. They do there are people that help maintain the bathrooms and keep them clean, and they ask for a little donation to a bowl to go to the bathroom. So a lot of little small denomination change is good to have in your pocket for those little
and maybe just one last question: what type of transport do you use from location to location?
So I think our van was a really fancy 15 passenger. It was very nice, new 15 passenger van, comfortable, nice bucket seats. How about you, Julie?
Yep, that was very similar, and we had quite a bit, the troughs up above, so our little purchases day after day, there was room to put those. It was very comfortable. Never once felt discomfort at all. I think the seats reclined a tiny little bit too, and they had armrests and really easy to get on and off, really nice low step to the ground. Tons of room for all of our luggage in the back, and excellent drivers. Well,
drivers are awesome. I love our drivers. Yeah. So our tour comes with 1 tour leader and a driver every time. So so we get to know them really well. I think our van even had disco lights. We turned in at nighttime.
I don't think we did. So I think that's probably it's 7 o'clock my time. I think
7 o'clock my time.
But we'll get to answering any of the questions that didn't get answered now. We'll email you to respond. So what else
this was just the final slide we had here. Is you can visit all the trips on the website, wildwomenexpeditions.com. You can email our adventure specialist, which just happens to be Julianne. That's her email. So, adventure@wildwomenexpeditions is Julianne's email. So you'll be reaching her directly if you contact that email, and you can ask me your questions directly.
Yeah, and feel free to call me anytime as well. It's either or both. But yeah, you can call me anytime you want. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah, it's an absolutely fascinating trip. Jennifer, the wonderful leader of Wild Women, asked us the other day, what's your favorite trip? And I definitely I actually chose Morocco. I've been on quite a few of our trips. They're all incredible, but Morocco is just, the wow factor is kind of over the top. It's a visually stunning, and it's just one of those places that every day was just another, oh my God, today feels better than yesterday. And it was fairly mind-blowing in that sense. But yeah, I absolutely love the trip, and I'm excited every time a woman books for Morocco. I'm excited for her. So
definitely. Well, thank you everyone, whoever joined in and tuned in to the session today. And this will be recorded, or has been recorded, and so it will be able to be reviewed. You'll probably get a recording or a link to the recording as well to have if you'd like to revisit it. All right. Thanks, Julie. And thanks again, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Okay.